All right, we almost there. We're good to start then? Great.
Yes, please.
Great, thanks. Thank you, everybody. My name is Karen Bopp, and I'm the co-chair, along with Rebecca Kinsinger, of the Autism Alliance of Canada. First, I want to acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory and has been the home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples for generations. We acknowledge that in Canada, across Turtle Island, there are also over 630 nations, communities, and 11 treaties that we honor and share stewardship of the land with, along with unceded territories in which we all live, play, and work today. So I invite you an opportunity to reflect on yourself on the lands that you are coming to us from today. So first, as I said, my name is Karen Bopp. I'm the co-chair of the Autism Alliance of Canada with Rebecca Kinsinger. Unfortunately, Rebecca has had a personal emergency, is not able to make the AGM meeting today. She really apologizes, is disappointed, and has asked me to represent us both. So I'm going to call the annual general meeting for the fiscal year of 2022 to order at, look at us, 12:05 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Our quorum is 10 organization members, and I can report, yes, that we have more than 10 organization members present. Therefore, a quorum is met. Please also note that this is a webinar, is being recorded, so that everyone knows that they can see it at another time. So it's my pleasure to call our AGM to order. You will see that we will be using poll questions for voting purposes. And so when there is an opportunity to vote for a motion, you will be asked to vote in favor, opposed, or abstain. Please select the option that you prefer. So Francisca is going to launch the poll on membership status after this introduction. So are you going to launch the poll now, Francisca? Oh, just give a moment so we can have an idea of the folks who are here today: organization member, community member, associate member, and non-member. Great. So the materials for the, we're going to move to the approval of the agenda. And are we going to be able to vote on other polls? Yes. I don't know. Sorry, something came out. So the 2022 annual general meeting, the agenda, all members who are in good standing within 45 days in advance of the AGM are eligible to vote and have received an AGM package with the agenda. We hope that you've received that. We have on the screen here just a summary of the agenda for you. Last year's minutes and the audited financial statements have been sent to you also by email. And please note that there will only be one vote per organization. So I'd like to be it resolved that the 2022 annual general meeting agenda is approved. And can I have a motion to approve?
It's Shino. I can put the motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Yes, it's Tanya. I can second that.
Great. And can we have the poll to approve the agenda? In favor, opposed, or abstain?
My apologies. We just have a technical problem. I need a minute to figure out so that everyone can see the poll. My apologies for that.
Okay. We'll just pause here for a moment.
Perhaps you can move to the co-chair report, as we don't have a vote on that one, to give Francisca more time.
Sure, I can do that. Thank you. Thanks, Maddie. So welcome to this year's annual general meeting. As I said before, Rebecca Kinsinger was really hoping to read the co-chair report today. So let me just start by telling you a little bit about Rebecca. Rebecca is an autistic advocate and a parent of autistic children with varying support needs, and she's based in Kelowna, BC. She also writes extensively on autism and presents material on the subject. Rebecca and I are honored to co-chair the Autism Alliance of Canada Board of Directors together. Co-chairing has not only allowed us to take on the role in terms of time management, it's also allowed us to broaden each other's perspectives as we tackle the issues. Rebecca is autistic, and I am an ally who has worked in the field for over 28 years. So again, on behalf of both of us, thank you for attending the AGM today. And thank you most especially for your ongoing support and participation with the Alliance. We, the Alliance, are better together, and only together can we begin to address the complex issues that autistic Canadians and their families face across their lifespan. In the past year, it's been filled with many exciting developments for the Alliance. The first being a name change that reflects a more strength-based, united approach. Autism Alliance of Canada. Our name has evolved, and so too has the work that we do. A central part of that work is to improve inclusion, accessibility, and acceptance so that autistic Canadians and their families can exercise their full rights and realize their full potential no matter where they live. To achieve this vision, we continue to learn from and hear directly from the voices of autistic Canadians, their families, and those with lived experience across Canada. We are proud to say that the Alliance now has more autistic members than any time in its history, with autistic members currently making up 18% of our membership, and the board consists of over 50% of its members with lived experience. These numbers are a great start, but we know we have more work to do to ensure that we hear from all voices across this country, from coast to coast to coast. I'm very proud to be entering my second year as co-chair with Rebecca. And now that we have a strong and stable leadership from Dr. Jonathan Lai and his team, the board has navigated to a transition to a governance-only model. And we can't be more proud of the work that John and his team have achieved. Here are just a few of the achievements from the past year that we want to highlight. The Alliance continues to build momentum for a national autism strategy. Over the past year, we have built a strong and respectful relationships with the Public Health Agency of Canada and other policy makers, working together with government while at the same time holding them to account as we move forward. We can now celebrate the historic passing of Bill S-203 into legislation on March 28, 2023. And we applaud the tremendous effort from all of you, all of our members, and others who enabled this to become law. We had a successful virtual Canadian Autism Leadership Summit in 2022, and we look forward to meeting together in person again and virtually for CALS 2023 in Ottawa from April 17th to 19th, where we will learn from our international colleagues and where we will continue to build our cross-Canada collaborative efforts. Finally, as we are growing, our landscape is changing too, and we responded by updating our strategic plan to reflect this change. After consulting with the voices of our members from across the country for a year and a half, the board has now approved a strategic plan that Dr. Jonathan Lai will be presenting at our summit. Our work is never done, and if you're interested, we encourage you to get involved and join the Alliance's standing committees to help further our collective efforts. Rebecca and I look forward to what the Alliance can accomplish in the year to come. Together we are stronger, and together we can harness the power of a collective impact that can generate and support community-driven innovation to address the diverse issues facing autistic Canadians across this beautiful country. Thank you. So let's go back to approving the agenda. Do we have that now, Francisca?
So
Yes.
we had a bit of a technical glitch. It's Jonathan speaking.
Hi.
I've just shared the membership status that you can see who's in the room. I believe once we share this, we can move on with the other polling questions. So that should be popping up on your screen just to show who's in the room. I'm going to stop sharing that, and then we should be able to move to our next polling question. So I'm going to move back up to the previous item for the voting for the rest of the agenda. Let me just move back up to motion one. So here was I'm going to go back to the agenda screen and turn it back over to you, Karen.
Great. So we'll start again with the approval of the agenda. So be it resolved that the 2022 annual general meeting agenda is approved. So motion to approve. Again, I think it was Shino. Yeah. And second
Tanya,
was Tanya. So let's do the poll for motion to approve the agenda. In favor, opposed, or abstained. And Francisca, let me know once the poll is done. We can show it, I guess, and then the motion is passed. So, but I will wait. In favor. So the motion is passed. Let's move on to item number 3, which is review and approval of the minutes of the AGM for April 2022. The materials that you have are the CASDA AGM meeting minutes, and the minutes of the annual general meeting were circulated to our members for review prior to the meeting. So please add any questions or comments or corrections in the chat now. So while you're doing that, I'll see if there's any, are there any questions or comments in the chat that have come up? So be it resolved that the 2021 annual general meeting minutes are reviewed and approved. Motion to approve.
I move to approve it. Maddie.
Seconded.
Kim,
Thank you. And we'll do the poll meeting. So the motion to approve poll will come up now. Please vote in favor, opposed, or abstain. All right, and let me know once you have the results or once they pop up. It looks like the motion has passed. It popped up very quickly for me. So is that right, Francisca? Yes. Great, motion is passed. The next item was the co-chair report. So we kind of switched that around and I did that already. So I'm gonna go to item number 6, which is year in review, and I'm gonna pass it over to Dr. Jonathan Lai.
Great, thank you, Karen. I'm going to stop sharing so I can share the right screen, correct screen. 1 second here. Okay, our year in review. You know, it's always hard to summarize a year's worth of activity, as many of us do on December 31. We're reflecting on the years past, and you know, given the changes, you know, this year and over the last few years with the pandemic and all that it's brought, it's always nice to look back and to see where we need to go, the gaps that still exist. Here I'll just give some highlights of what we've done as an alliance, as an organization over the past year. So I'm going to split this up in a few sections and give a bit of a narrative about some of the pieces. A big one, and that just sort of finished off for most of us who have followed, is Bill S-203. This was a bill introduced at the Senate to create a framework for autism by the government, and for the health minister to give account for actions taken towards this framework with very specific clauses about what needs to be a part of it. So this started back in November of 2021, and with under guidance from us and some of our members, we were able to speak at the Senate while it was being crafted in second reading in the committee stage. That passed in the Senate. last year in May. Many of us remember that time. And then over the past few months, it went back to the House of Commons. Typically, things start at the House of Commons and go into the Senate. It kind of went in reverse to our typical order. And the House did pass it just last week or 2 weeks ago. So we're really excited about that. It is now law, and we're looking forward to celebrating and seeing the development of a national autism strategy that will be propelled forward through this legislation. So thank you to all of you members who have been advocating, guiding, testifying at various committees for this bill. Under policy initiatives, we have worked on our policy compendium. Many of you have been involved in 2 years of working groups along the various subjects that are listed on the bottom here. Some framed by what Public Health Agency of Canada has decided around social inclusion, economic inclusion, diagnosis, supports and services. And before that, our blueprint, some of those areas that we have framed in the previous year for sort of actionable policy recommendations from people in the field, people with lived experience, people with expertise in these areas. This was submitted to not just the Public Health Agency of Canada, but other government departments, and it was well received and welcome to help inform what they can do on this strategy. So we're celebrating the completion and submission of this. You can find it on our website. Contact us if you would like a copy. This year, we also saw, as Public Health Agency of Canada was leading the development of a strategy, they held a conference. We try to guide and help with their work in the background to make sure it was as rights-based as possible. It was as informed by lived experience and stakeholders and community organizations as much as possible. We feel like we've done the best job we could. We did issue a letter highlighting the strengths of what they did, but also pointing out what was missing overall. We did get a response from the minister, and it's a quote of that is from below. We're happy to hear that the health minister will be at the summit and giving remarks at the summit in 2 weeks' time. We're excited to continue to deliver Ready, Willing, and Able with our partners at Inclusion Canada. It's a government funded program, and we're excited to know that there's going to be an expansion of Ready, Willing, and Able into phase 3. There's been 3 phases of this project. These are the targets for phase 3 for Ready, Willing, and Able to reach 10,000 employers, to have 2,000 employment outcomes, to have individuals with jobs successfully, to have 10 more established partnerships with national employers, and partnerships with Indigenous, BIPOC, culturally specific communities. We know that there is a lack of engagement or barriers to engagement with those groups. So we really want to put a special emphasis, and you'll hear more about that at the end of this AGM from Cynthia, who's going to be speaking about some of these projects and how we're thinking about employment in this time. In our health services policy research arena, this is a big pillar of what we're doing in the future. We held our Autism Data Collaborative. That was a meeting back in October of 2021. Many of you, I think about 70, 80 of us were part of that, kind of identifying, what does research need to do to help put legs under a strategy. Research that is meaningful and relevant, and just not reports that sit on the wall. On the shelf on the wall. So we had a stakeholder report, 4 working group sessions and projects that were defined, and now we have policy fellows, research fellows that are actually taking action on these projects. You'll hear more about this in this presentation later on in the summit. Really exciting work there. We've been helping collaborating with many of the others in the disability community. A lot of people ask, autism and other disabilities, how do we relate? In the larger disability community, in this coalition, this network of organizations, we're trying to think about collective impact and what does that look like. So we're trying to build the groundwork for this, and we've been taking a lead role in this arena with the Office of Disabilities Issues under Minister Carla Qualtrill's office. So we've had a few successful meetings, bridging with other disability groups, understanding intersectionality, understanding what a rights-based approach means, understanding what social justice is amongst these organizations, and creating learning communities amongst the disability organizations that are represented here nationally. Around the same time, we've been working and discussing and advocating with government in our work. This was one event we had in Ottawa, along with that Pan Disability Coalition, to sort of present a united front, similar to what we're doing in autism, and realizing that we should be a big part of that community. Some of the work we've been doing, we've launched the Canadian Journal of Autism Equity a couple of years back, and this past year we were awarded by the journal was awarded by Autism Ontario as a recipient of the Jerry Bloomfield Professional Award. They had 2 issues, and this upcoming issue will be on housing. Hope I'm allowed to announce that, but it will be on housing. I am allowed to announce that, but it will be on housing, and they're looking for submissions. So please feel free to reach out to us or to the CJ website for more details about that. Training and fellowships, I'm not going to go through each of these projects, but very exciting. The work that we've done with the Autism Data Collaboratives, the projects that were identified around Indigenous issues, around wait lists across the country, around administrative data, and actually understanding how services are used, where are the gaps, where are the barriers, many different issues around the CRPD and how autism policy around the world aligns with the CRPD. A lot of these students have been taking key roles during their training, and we're really building capacity that way amongst our trainees to understand the issues and be future leaders in this community. And our new branding, Karen did speak about this. This is reflects a change around what we want to be moving forward, and how we want to view autism, view autistic Canadians, their families, around, and having a strengths-based approach and be more accountable to that. And we've heard feedback of how our old name, it was time to sort of evolve from that, and we're doing our best to continue to push forward in the best way possible, and set the tone and the approach, and show leadership in the country in this regard. Some upcoming initiatives. So this is one project we're looking at minority language children, so people who don't speak the majority language of their province or their region, and how the barriers to their care for minority language speakers. So there's a project out of McGill, and we are currently recruiting people to be part of those focus groups. Stay tuned in our newsletter for more information on that. This is the waitlist initiative. So we are aiming over the next few years to create a pan-Canadian dashboard at the diagnosis level currently, to really see what the waitlists actually are at different sites. We do have some sites signed on, and really, making sure we have the right arrangements, and we have a research fellow that's leading this work. And the goal is to inform national level policy to support, what waitlist times look like. We see these in other health sectors, and that really helps drive change at a policy level. So getting transparent waitlist times, at least at this clinical level first, and seeing what we can go from there. So baby steps, but we're moving in the right direction. This month, we will be launching our Canadian Autistic Adult Needs Assessment Survey. This survey is going to look at the quality of life of autistic adults and directly inform pieces that come out of the National Autism Strategy. So stay tuned for that. The government's really interested in looking at the needs of adults. We don't hear a lot about that, and there's not a lot of support out there. Needs of adults to the needs of seniors across the spectrum. So trying to understand, how do we build a better system, a better society that allows for their full participation. And we also have a pandemic Canadian Autism Needs Assessment Survey. So another survey. I know many of us feel we're surveyed to death, but these are important initiatives. This one's looking at the impacts of COVID-19 on autistic Canadians. And the Public Health Agency of Canada is interested in understanding the effects of the pandemic, what that looks like. So we're doing this in partners with our members as well. And I believe I'm close to the end here, so thanks. Our 9th annual Canadian Autism Leadership Summit coming up in less than 2 weeks. So we're looking forward to the 3 days that we're going to have together. On the Monday, the 17th, starting, we want to talk about post-secondary education supports, rolling up our sleeves to say what do we need to do, what do we need to learn, how do we build a better system across the country in terms of post-secondary, what are the pathways in and out of education. And then looking at housing, so announcing a new collaborative, a new project from some of our member organizations, and how do we work around housing. We've had a lot of great work over the past few years, but now what's the next step in building some shared leadership in that area. The next 2 days, looking first at international, what can we learn internationally? We do have some international speakers flying in to tell us and to talk to us about their autism strategies, their autism policies. What can we learn as Canada to adopt? We're going to hear from you, our members, to say, and we'll send some discussion questions ahead of time so you can prepare and give feedback about what we want to do. And as the Alliance, we can kind of go back and then guide government and share those reports more broadly. So that's day 2, looking internationally. And then day 3 is looking within Canada. So having provincial and territorial leaders speak about the work that they're doing, what they need specifically in the region from a national strategy. For national strategy to affect people on the ground, the provinces and territories have to be involved. So that's going to be important. And looking within Canada, also within our Indigenous communities, realizing there's sort of distinct and different needs at times in different communities, and having that intersectional lens, so highlighting some of that. So we're going to have a lot of feedback sessions throughout. So you're not there to just listen, you're there to participate. So come with that attitude and expectation, and we're happy to continue this conversation. We're at about 220 something people overall, so the largest summit to date over the last 9 years. So yeah, we might have to cap it soon. It's gonna be sold out. So really excited to see that come to fruition. And thank you. That's a bit of a highlight of what we've done this year. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Karen.
I had to unmute myself. Thank you so much, John. And I'm actually going to the next item on the agenda is the annual election of directors. And I'm going to pass it over to Kim Ward, who is the chair of the governance committee. Kim?
Hi, everyone. We have a packed agenda today, but we wanted to just take a few minutes to introduce all of the current directors, where they're from, the perspective or perspectives that they bring to the board, and just to keep it lively and an interesting or fun fact about themselves. So I'll start. I'm Kim Ward, and I'm from Calgary. I'm the executive director of an organization in Calgary called Society for Autism Support and Services. And the perspective I bring to the board, I think I bring the perspective of a clinician, of a service provider, and as a service provider who's worked in this space for over 20 years. In terms of an interesting fact, my husband and I over the last few years have fostered rescue puppies, and as of last count, we've fostered 36. So that's my fun fact. I'm going to turn it over to Karen next.
Great, thanks. Hi, my name is Karen Bopp. I'm currently the Director of Autism Information Services, British Columbia, with the Ministry of Children and Family Development. Obviously, I'm in British Columbia, and I live in the Lower Mainland. I've worked in the field for, as I said, about 28 years. And a fun fact about me, I don't know. I have a set of twins who I'm just so proud of, and they're launching themselves into the world as their second year university at my alma mater, UBC, and so they're just sort of my world. So I will do. Kim, you're announcing names, right? I don't pass on.
I was going to ask Shino to go next, please.
Hi, everyone. Shino Nakani. I'm from Calgary, Alberta, and I am currently the Provincial Director for Autism Society of Alberta. I am a mom to 2 young adults, and my oldest son is autistic and amazing. And a fun fact about me, I love, love, love to play competitive soccer. Thank you.
Maddie, can you go next, please?
Yeah, sure. My name is Matty Dever. I'm an autistic adult and parent to 5 kids, 4 of which are also autistic from the ages of 14 to 24, 3 of whom are also girls. So I have a special interest in autism in girls, and we live in Carleton Place in rural Eastern Ontario. I've been involved in advocacy locally, provincially, and federally regarding autism, education, and disability rights. And one thing about me is I'm very interested in young adult fiction and being guests on podcasts.
Thanks, Maddie. Sue, can you go next, please?
Hi, everybody. I'm Sue Koch, and I'm the CEO for Carrie's Place Autism Services in Toronto. Although we're located all over the province, and I've been on the board for about 5 years now, and it's so exciting to see all the changes that has been brought about. Primarily, Jonathan and his staff have done such an amazing job over the past 2 years. So I've seen lots and lots of really positive changes in it. And I guess I just love working in the field in terms of what I'm doing. And the most current thing that we're involved in at Carrie's Place is we're embarking on a huge housing strategy, which fits right into what AAC is looking at in terms of a housing strategy. And so we're really excited to be looking at building new homes for autistic adults over the next few years.
Thanks, Sue. Tanya, can you go next, please?
Sure. Hi, my name is Tanya McLeod. I'm the president of the Sneeve Family Foundation, which is based in Calgary, Alberta, within the Treaty 7 region of Southern Alberta. I'm very pleased to serve on this board of directors, feel quite privileged to do so, and I think it's going on 3 or 4 years now. The perspective I bring is really from a national organization, really looking to elevate the voices of autistic youth and adults and bring their priorities forward to this agenda. An interesting fact about me is that I'm a 22-year veteran with the Canadian Armed Forces, and you might say, so what? But I've lived in pretty much every region of Canada for anywhere from 6 months to now 8 years in Calgary, as well as outside the country in the Netherlands. Thanks.
Thanks, Tanya. Corey, can you go next, please?
Hi, everyone. I'm Corey Walker, and I'm an autistic self-advocate. And so I guess that's sort of the perspective I bring. I'm also engaged to a yet to be diagnosed autistic woman. My fiance is autistic. And I'm a job coach with a private employment agency here in Prince George. But I'm a member on my own, not as part of my as part of my employer. Fun fact about me is I do 3 weekly radio shows on a community radio station in Prince George. I do a classic country, gospel, and bluegrass shows. That's my fun fact.
Thanks, Corey. Pascal, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yes. So my name is Pascal Castonguay. Sorry. I work for, sorry, I have my translations gone somewhere. Sorry, here I am. So I'm the coordinator of the National Network of Expertise in Autism, which serves stakeholders in health and social services, education, and early childhood in the province of Quebec. As you can hear, I represent Francophones on the Alliance's board. I've been working for over 20 years to promote the inclusion of deaf and hard of hearing, people who have intellectual disabilities or autistics. And fun fact, I have a strong interest in sign languages.
Thanks, Pascal. Gail, can you go next, please?
I don't see Gail on.
Okay. Okay. Anne, can you go next, please?
Hi, I'm Anne Cresta. I am a rep from Manitoba. I sit on the board of Asperger Manitoba. I'm also executive director of Level It Up, and we promote greater employment of skilled individuals on the autism spectrum in science, technology, engineering, the arts, and math. And I have been involved with the whole autism world for 33 years. I have 2 sons on the autism spectrum who are in their 30s, and so aligns with them. And a fun fact, I also chair an international alliance called NeuroWorks, and we're all businesses and organizations promoting greater employment. And it is a really collaborative, amazing group of people and companies. Really enjoy doing that work. Thank you.
Thanks, Anne. Priscilla?
Hi, everyone. My name is Priscilla Burnham-Riosa. I'm from Ontario, and I've been a board member for just over a year now. I am also an associate professor in the Department of Applied Disability Studies at Brock University in St. Catharines, Ontario. I bring the perspective of a clinician and a researcher. Something interesting about me is that I love weightlifting. So I'm a fitness athlete, and I've been doing it very seriously for about 3 years now.
Thanks, Priscilla. Arshad?
Hi, everyone. My name is Arshad Zaver. I am the Director of Finance and Corporate Services at OASAT, a not-for-profit organization. The experience that I bring to the board is being in the not-for-profit accounting space for over a decade. And a fun fact for me, not too many fun facts about me. I'm not so exciting as an accountant, but I do like pizza, so that's as risky as I'll get. Thank you.
Thanks, Arshad. Thanks, everyone. The governance committee's worked hard over the last couple of months to present members with candidates who are going to bring diverse skills and experience to the board of directors of the Autism Alliance of Canada. When it comes to this process, we are guided by our bylaws, and our bylaws allow us to have up to 15 board members. We currently have 1 board member, Arshad, who you just met, who is not standing for re-election, and Brian Foster, who was previously on the board, left the board during the course of this year. We currently have 8 board members whose terms have not ended and who have indicated their intention to continue to serve on the board. This includes myself, Tanya, Sue, Rebecca, Anne, Priscilla, Gail, and Pascal. This year, there are 5 returning directors whose current terms have ended and who are being nominated to stand for re-election. This includes Karen Bob, Maddie, Shino, Corey, and Jill. I would like to ask for a motion that the slate of returning directors be approved for another 2-year term on the Autism Alliance of Canada Board of Directors.
It's Tanya, I'll move.
Can I have a seconder, please?
Yes.
Pascal, thank you. And I believe there'll be a poll coming up for us to vote on this motion. Just waiting for the poll to come up and then we'll move on. Do you have those results, Francisca? Can I go ahead? Okay. Finally, the governance committee this year is bringing forward a slate of 2 new nominees for approval for a 2-year term to serve on the Alliance Board of Directors. The bios for each candidate were shared within the meeting packages. The candidates are Debbie Irish and David Nicholas. Each of these candidates has indicated their commitment to the Alliance's purposes and objectives, and we're confident they will bring a wealth of experience, passion, and diverse skills to the board. I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the new slate of nominees for a 2-year term on the Autism Alliance of Canada Board of Directors.
It's Shino. I move that motion.
And a seconder?
That's Tanya. I second.
And Francesca will deploy the poll. Just waiting for the poll to come up. If the motion is passed, I will turn it back over to Karen. Thank you.
On mute. Great. Thank you so much, Kim. Where our 7th item on the agenda is the annual approval of financial statements. And I would like to pass it over to Arshad.
Thank you, Karen. So for this agenda item, we'll be going through the approval of the audited financial statements for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2022. I'd like to introduce our auditor, Luke Richardson, and I'll give a brief bio of him before I pass it over to him. So Luke has a Bachelor of Business Administration from Acadia University with a major in accounting. He joined AC Beliveau Veno Inc., a regional accounting firm with offices along the South Shore of Nova Scotia in 2018. Luke works mainly on audits, review engagements, corporate and personal tax returns. He gained his CPA designation in 2020, and he manages the Beliveau Veno Chester office. He's involved in local business groups in Hubbard's, Nova Scotia, and has served on the Local Hospital Foundation board in his hometown of Shelburne, Nova Scotia. So I'll pass it over to Luke and he'll go through the audited financial statements, and then we'll move on to issuing the motions.
Thanks, Arshad. First, I'd just like to thank the finance team at the Alliance for their help during our audit work. Paola and Arshad were very helpful throughout the audit process, made things easy on our end. We're very accessible and answering any questions and made the process a lot smoother. So thanks to them and Jonathan for his input as well. So we've already met with the Internal Affairs Committee to review the statements, and everything was good on their end. So I'll just do a brief overview of the statements. I'm not sure if we have them available to bring up on the slides.
Did you want to share them, Luke? I just want to.
Yeah, if we can do that, that works for me.
Great, go ahead.
Okay. Oh, it says I'm not able to share.
Okay, let's see if we can get you to share.
Please try again. It should work now.
Yeah. So are you guys looking at the statements now?
Not yet, no. There we go.
Okay. Just go to the top here. So as discussed before, we've got the new name Autism Alliance of Canada. We'll just include the former name just for this year, just to use in the transition. Scrolling through, we've got the index and then our independent auditors report. So this essentially, these 2 pages is what we're tasked with, providing a report on the financial statements. So it outlines our opinion. In our opinion, the accompanying financial statements present fairly in all material respects financial position of the Alliance as at December 31st, 2022. So that's what we call an unmodified opinion, which is basically to say that we've looked through the statements, we've looked through the internal controls, and everything appears to be materially correct from our point of view. So then it outlines the basis of our opinion. So based on Canadian generally standard auditing standards. Then it outlines the responsibilities of management and those charged with governance. So you guys are responsible for the presentation or preparation and presentation of the financial statements and drafting internal controls to ensure that those standards can be met. And then it outlines our responsibilities. So you guys are responsible for the statements themselves, and we're responsible for submitting an opinion on those statements. So to do this, we look at the risks of material misstatement of the statements and draft procedures in response to those risks. And we obtain an understanding of the internal controls and evaluate the appropriateness of those internal controls, and communicate anything to the board that might be of interest for improvement. And then we evaluate the statements and the note disclosures. So we'll start with the statement of financial position. So again, based on Jonathan's presentation, big changes from last year, lots of new projects on the go. So that's what's driving a lot of these numbers to be quite drastically different from the prior year. So we're sitting at cash position of 647,189 at the end of December, up from 383. So it looks like a big number, and I mean it is a big number, but a lot of that is tied to this deferred revenue line. So this 562,751 under the liabilities. So a lot of that cash is for projects that are on the go, that are still in progress, and those funds will be needed to complete those projects. Accounts receivable up a little bit from last year, mostly due to public health agency Q4 funding that came in prior to year end, or subsequent to year end, sorry. Restricted term deposit related to one of the TD account, which was paid out subsequent to year end. And again, that deferred revenue 562 up from 223, just a result of all those projects on the go. So total assets 841,000, total liabilities 644 at the end of the day, and net assets 196. Moving over to the statement of operations, again, good changes from last year. Revenues up from grants in relation to, again, all those projects on the go. So this statement sort of summarizes the entity as a whole, and then we have a schedule at the back of the statements, which breaks it down sort of by project and by project groups and operating activities. So maybe it'll make sense just to scroll to that since we're here. So this just outlines the various projects on the go, and one of the discussions we had in the meeting with the board was, as these projects continue to grow, it might be beneficial to look at some different ways to present this so it's friendly to users and it can continue to provide value. So funders can see how the money is being spent, and it makes sense for the organization as a whole. So again, lots of, I see a hand raised in the chat there. I'm not sure if you can unmute or. Couple hands going up if I'm not sure if they're able to.
I believe you're going to have to ask your questions in the Q&A function. Luke, why don't you keep going, and then once there's questions in the Q&A, I'll be able to I'll read them out to you.
Sure, perfect. So again, this just summarizes the different projects on the go, the main ones, and then this other partnerships is sort of a catch-all for the smaller but also growing projects. And I suspect next year this will look quite different as there's more activity within the Alliance. So we'll scroll back up to our statement of changes in net assets, just which ties to your statement of financial position. So small deficit in the year, net assets at the end of the year 196,916. And then we've got statement of cash flows, just where money's been going and coming in, coming out. So cash at the beginning of the year, 383,981, and then sources of cash increased by 263 to leave us at that cash position of 647 at the end of the year.
Luke, there's a question that came in through the Q&A. It's asked, what it may have been mentioned already, but what were the quote unquote bad debts?
Yes, so I'll throw it back up. So bad debts of 18,963. So there's, I'll scroll up to the statement of financial position because it sort of ties into this HST recoverable amount. So the bulk of it is related to this, and we've got a note referencing it, note 4. So this 12,963 is HST from 2019 and 2020. So there was an issue with when the CRA issued the checks for the HST refunds in those years, and they either didn't get sent to the proper address or they got missed along the way. So those, since they're over 2 years old, we set them up as bad debts. But we've instructed the bookkeeper and Jonathan to look into those amounts, and there is a process with the CRA that you can have those checks reissued. So it's likely that that money will be coming back to the Alliance. It's just because of the age of them, they were set up as bad debts. And then there were just some other small cumulative donations or contribution amounts that make up the remaining amount of that bad debt.
Comment, thanks for the background on that item.
Perfect. And then the notes, pretty similar to what you would have seen in previous years. So it just outlines the purpose of the Alliance, the basis of presentation, and if you need some late night reading, you can read through your significant accounting policies. Again, nothing really to highlight here that would be different from previous years or anything that would be of concern. And that HST recoverable, as we just talked about, and then just your financial instruments. So that's a quick rundown of the financial statements for the 2022 year. Again, thanks to the board and to the to Paula, the bookkeeper, for all their help, and it was great working with the Alliance this year. Turn it back over.
Thank you, Luke. So I'm going to issue the motion. So be it resolved that the members accept and approve the 2022 audited financial statements. I'd like to ask for a motion to approve.
This is Maddie. I move to approve this.
And this is Anne, and I second.
The motion has passed. So with respect to the next item is with respect to the appointment of the auditors. Be it further approved that Beliveau Veno is hereby appointed the independent auditor of the corporation to hold office until the close of the next annual members meeting or until a successor is appointed, as such remuneration as may be fixed by the directors, and the directors are hereby authorized to fix such remuneration. So I'd like to request a motion to approve.
Priscilla,
I'm Corey, I second.
Okay, I'm not clear on whether or not the motion is passed, given the stats on the board.
Maddie, I'm going to ask you, we voted sort of separately outside of this poll. So can
we bring up the results again?
It's in favor is 5 out of 12, 42%, and 7 out of 12 are abstaining, 58%.
Okay, and there are 2, 3, 4, 5 votes in favor amongst the board members. So that would increase it so that it would pass.
Okay, another one was just added by a board member. We apologize for folks, for some reason the poll is not allowing the board members to vote on the poll. We're having to vote in our chat.
Okay, so the motion has passed. Back over to you, Karen.
Great. So next are bylaw updates. So I'm going to pass that over to Maddie Deaver. Maddie.
Thank you. So the governance committee every year looks through the bylaws of the organization to see does it make sense? Have things changed in the way we're doing things? Have the laws around us changed? And this year we also were looking for a mechanism to allow us to the organization to make the board of directors to make decisions in between board meetings, which happen every 2 months. So we have an executive committee that we've had that's in our bylaws, and what we've looked at this year is giving a little bit more ability for the board of directors to pass on some decision making in between meetings, but still having the board of directors responsible to approve those. So if I can have the ability to share my screen, I am going to show you the changes that we are recommending. And if there are any questions, please hold them to the end and put them into the Q&A, and we can get through them. So there's 2 sets of the types of changes that we're looking at. One of them is looking at language to make the language more gender neutral, and to fix just a couple grammatical issues that we had. So in Article 17, 17.5, there we changed the word director to member, because a director is eligible for election or designation. A director didn't make sense. It's really a member is eligible for. And any place that we saw he, she, they, we just put we changed it to the neutral. So in this case, they're after that member. In 17.7, we changed his or her to a director. So we're getting rid of the pronouns and just specifying the position. And in 17.10, we've just changed his, her, their to just their. And that keeps it consistent with the rest of the bylaws, which generally use the pronoun them or their, them, they, or their. And Article 18, this is where we're talking about giving some authority to the executive committee. So the executive committee consists of the chair of the board, the vice chair of the board, secretary and treasurer, as well as a past chair. And what we're looking at doing is basically providing the executive committee may, between board meetings, exercise the powers of the board on matters that require immediate attention, subject to such restrictions contained in this bylaw, imposed from time to time by the board or otherwise imposed by law. And all substantial actions taken by the executive committee shall be reported to the board at its next meeting. So what the executive committee can't do is submit to the members any question on matters requiring the approval of the membership. We can't fill a vacancy amongst the directors or the position of auditor or of a person appointed to conduct a review engagement of the corporation. It can't appoint additional directors, issue debt or obligations, approve any financial statements under the Act, adopt, amend, or repeal bylaws, and it can't establish communication contributions to be made or dues to be paid by members for the membership of the corporation. So this gives the executive committee a little bit of flexibility to be able to make decisions that happen in between these 2-month board meetings. We've had a few of those this year, and we've had to come up with a mechanism that's been challenging. So I will open up for any questions. Okay.
There are no questions in the Q&A right now.
Okay, I will stop sharing. And
unfortunately, you weren't sharing, but that's okay. You did an excellent job of verbalizing the changes.
Okay. All right, so at this point, I have a motion for the bylaws to reflect the name of the organization is Autism Alliance of Canada, Alliance Canadienne de l'Autisme, and other changes as circulated. Can I get a motion to approve?
I so move to approve. Sue.
Thank you, Sue. Do I have a seconder?
It's Sheena, I can second.
Thank you. And Francisco, we can let you do the poll. Okay, looking at the results, we have 9 out of 13 in favor, 4 out of 13 abstain, and we have in the board, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more in favor. This motion passes. Thank you very much, and I'll pass it back on to Karen.
Thank you. So before we conclude, I just want to take a brief moment to thank our outgoing directors, Arshad Zever and Brian Foster. Brian joined the board in 2021 and he sat on the Internal Affairs Committee. So thank you, Brian, for all of your hard work and dedication to the Alliance. Arshad also joined the board in 2021 and immediately assumed the role of treasurer. He also sat on the Internal Affairs Committee. Arshad has been our financial rock these past 2 years, and his expertise has been an enormous benefit to the Alliance. He was always there to explain the details and answer the questions and ensure that our finances were in order and transparent for all. We cannot thank you enough for your work in this role. So to both Arshad and Brian, we wish you all the best in the future, and we hope that our paths continue to cross in meaningful and productive ways. So as we conclude the meeting, I want to thank again all of the members of the Autism Alliance of Canada and yourselves for your attendance and support of us today. And we're running out of time, and I apologize to the guest speakers, but I'm going to pass it over to John so that he can introduce the guest speakers and the panel, and we can get that rolling. So John.
Great, thank you. So to close, and this is probably where everybody's most excited when we get to this part. To close this January meeting, we're going to have our guest speakers, Tanya McLeod and Cynthia Chowdhury, to present about the employment ecosystem national initiatives supporting the employment journey of autistic job seekers. It's going to explore both two national initiatives that work together to connect employers and neurodiverse job seekers towards meaningful employment. We've heard from Tanya already, president of the Cine Family Foundation in Calgary, Alberta. And I'm going to introduce Cynthia, is the National Project Coordinator at Ready, Willing, and Able. Spent the last 10 years working with BIPOC autism communities Ontario, supporting them to build community capacity and developing culturally relevant autism resources. Cynthia hopes to continue working with many diverse disability communities throughout Canada and furthering developing her intersectional lens. So I'm going to hand it over to Cynthia, or to Tanya first.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. I think in the interest of time, I will just jump in. Cynthia has been kind enough to be the controller of the technology and the slides. So, good afternoon, and really thank you very much for the opportunity to share information about these two national employment initiatives, both of which are funded in part by the Opportunities Fund for Persons with Disabilities. It's a program of funding administered by Economic and Social Development Canada. So today I'll share some information about the employment ecosystem and provide an overview of the Employment Works project, and then I'll hand over to Cynthia to speak about a special project within the Ready, Willing, Enable initiative. I thought I'd start by sharing a bit of history on the federal government's support for these national initiatives and how the initiatives work together and complement each other. The Government of Canada recognizes the importance of supporting economic and social inclusion of autistic Canadians and recognizes that persons on the autism spectrum face unique barriers to employment. So the government chose to take tangible action nearly 10 years ago by capitalizing on the expertise and partnerships of community-based organizations to advance a continuum of supports to individuals, their families, and employers. These all represent critical elements of that employment ecosystem. So in fact, Economic Action Plan 2014 explicitly proposed important investments in the Ready, Willing, Enable initiative to connect persons with developmental disabilities with jobs, and investments in the Employment Works initiative to support the expansion of a network of vocational training programs in centres across Canada to help autistic talent prepare for and connect to employment opportunities. So Ready, Willing, Enable is essentially focused on the demand side by developing inclusive workplaces, connecting very closely with employers, and generating new employer demand. Employment Works is more focused on the supply side of helping autistic talent to prepare for and connect to jobs. So these national initiatives commenced in 2015, and I'm pleased to confirm, as Jonathan mentioned earlier, that both initiatives have been awarded renewed funding, in fact, a third round of funding from the Opportunities Fund for Persons with Disabilities program. Ma présentation de cet après-midi sera totalement en anglais, mais les informations à l'écran seront fournies en anglais et en français. J'ai traduit la présentation moi-même, alors je vous demande donc de m'excuser s'il vous plaît s'il y a les erreurs. Next slide, please, Cynthia. So the Employment Works project offers an inclusive framework based on an evidence-informed manualized curriculum that has a proven record of success in developing and enhancing a participant employability and supporting employment access as well as stability. The in-person program is offered in partnership with several organizations, many of whom are members of the Autism Alliance of Canada, and the program is typically delivered to groups of 4 to 10 participants at a time. There is also an online program, which I will speak about in a few minutes. The project applies an ecosystem approach to achieving long-term employment outcomes by considering the intersecting elements of that ecosystem. And by that, I mean not only individual job seekers themselves, but families, employers and co-workers, agency, as well as community-based supports, and really the influence and impact that these have on employment success. Employment Works is really about experiential learning. Participants practice and develop the essential skills necessary to get and keep a job, and it concurrently provides employers opportunities to meet autistic job seekers and integrate them into their workplaces. So participants will be enrolled in the project for 12 months. The Preparing for Work portion of the project provides 60 hours of programming. 30 hours of this are dedicated to classroom training or structured learning, and 30 hours are dedicated to job sampling. Job sampling is what we refer to as the secret sauce of the Employment Works program, in that it provides opportunities to practice skills in real work settings and gain insight into employer expectations, as well as the roles of employees in different workplaces. Participants share with us that it helps them to build confidence for the workplace. The Getting Work portion of the program provides access to direct supports to find and get jobs. This includes a range of approaches that are designed to meet an individual participant's needs. The Keeping Work portion of the program commences when a participant gets a job or a paid work experience. Once employed, participants have access to on-the-job supports that meet their individual needs and help them to keep their job. Examples of on-the-job supports might include job coaching, assistive technology, or specialized equipment, for example, required for the specific job. Program enrollment is for 12 months, and individual participants will advance through the different elements of the program in accordance with their own personal employment journey. Next slide, please. So I mentioned that the in-person program is offered in partnership with several organizations across Canada. Cynthia, next slide, please. So this next slide highlights who the Employment Works partners are, as well as their location in Canada. So in the interest of time, I won't go through it all. All of these locations are available on the Employment Works website, but we have, representation from the West Coast to the East Coast with 10 partnership organizations across the country. You'll notice that it's almost all, as most things, most services within Canada, very close to the southern border of the province, which is where the Employment Works online program comes in. Next slide, please. So the Employment Works online program is a 12-module self-paced online program based on that same manualized curriculum as the in-person course. These modules focus on 4 key themes: preparing for work, getting work, keeping work, and thriving at work. Program content includes tools, resources, and strategies to help participants identify their employment goals, develop and practice relevant skills, and build confidence to be successful in a workplace. Participants can undertake this online program on their own time and at their own pace to enhance their employability and develop essential skills required for employment. Although it's online, we do have facilitators who are available to support participants in both English and French via optional weekly and group-based or one-on-one sessions. These sessions provide an opportunity to connect with other participants, no matter where they are in the country, ask questions, enhance understanding of the program content, and discuss other key employment-related topics. Facilitators can also discuss and help coordinate individualized job sampling and work experience in local communities where participants live and aim to work. While the online program was developed with a goal that it could be completed in approximately 1 month, participants have up to 6 months to complete the online modules. However, online participants are also enrolled in the project for the full 12 months so that they have access to other project supports to help them get jobs and keep jobs. For example, access to job seeking support, as well as on-the-job supports once they are employed. One of the goals of the online program is to remove barriers to participation related to location, transportation, or fixed program schedules. So individuals can and do enroll in the program independently, but we are also collaborating with schools and community organizations that support autistic job seekers. These organizations are leveraging the highly engaging learning management system and the online programs and resources within the Employment Works online program to complement their vocational and employment programming and supports, or to offer vocational and employment programming and supports where they otherwise don't exist. So if you happen to be an organization or an individual who is interested in leveraging the online platform, please get in touch. We'd love to discuss and explore options with you. Next slide, please. So the purpose of this slide is really just to simply reinforce that Employment Works Online is available to individuals anywhere in Canada. All that is required to participate is access to a computer or a tablet. It'd be really difficult to do just on a phone, as well as a reliable internet connection. I want to reinforce that if anyone in the audience today is connected to an organization that aims to support autistic youth and adults on their pathway to employment, please get in touch. The slides do include the email address in both English and French. So we really would like to discuss and explore options with you. While the online program does not include opportunities for in-person job sampling, we have developed a number of job preview videos that provide great introductory overviews of a variety of different jobs. Online participants can also access job simulations to practice foundational and soft skills in the workplace. We have also developed an online resource to help participants practice and gain confidence with cash handling skills, for example, through a custom developed virtual cash drawer. So really, a specific tool to help those who might be seeking work within a retail setting. So to summarize, the Employment Works online program offers access to a variety of tools, resources, and supports to help autistic Canadians living anywhere in Canada to prepare for, get, and keep work. And while it's online, participants are not alone. There are a variety of supports available. Next slide, please. Last but certainly not least, I wanted to share that the Employment Works project also provides access to mental health supports for all participants, both in-person and online participants. This participant assistance program provides access to professional support, including counseling, life smart coaching for a variety of issues such as, for example, nutrition or smoking cessation, stress, career planning, workplace issues, shift work, etc. There are also a number of online resources, including a library of health and wellness articles and tools. Participant choice is a key feature of the Participant Assistance Program, with professional support available in the way that best suits participant preferences, including video, telephone, e-counseling, and in-person. So thank you again for the opportunity to provide an overview of the Employment Works project and program. And if you'd like to discuss further or get more information, please don't hesitate to reach out either to me directly or to the project through our website. With that, I'll hand it over to Cynthia.
Thanks, Tanya. Let me just this one more time. My button's not working today, it seems. Sorry, just a second.
While you're doing that, Cynthia, we did have a question in the chat. Asked if there'll be access to the slides after the presentation, and yes, we can get those out, and that the webinar is recorded for all of the members, so that will be another way to access the slides. And there's another question: what age group is targeted for this program? Tanya.
Yeah. Sorry, I answered in the Q&A, but it's for anyone who is of legal working age, so 15 to 64.
Great. Perfect. Thanks so much, Tanya. That was so lovely to hear. I'm seeing so many familiar faces in the chat, so hi to everyone from the autism community that I've worked with in the past. Hi, Mark. I'm Cynthia. I think you probably all know about RWA and the wonderful program that's been running, and thank you, Tanya, for that little intro there as well. So I wanted to talk to you all about today. It's clear that you are all strong advocates. I love the work that Tanya's doing. I just want to challenge everyone to expand that a bit more and to include other communities that might share that intersectionality of disability and autism. So this year, RWA had the pleasure of embarking on a partnership with 10 youth employment communities to create pilot projects with communities across Canada where they were able to create employment pilot programs for youth with an intellectual disability or on the autism spectrum. So these were culturally specific, needs-based projects that work together with leaders, elders, knowledge keepers, key community members to create programs that are completely autonomous and based on the needs of each respective community to serve youth on the autism spectrum and their employment needs. So the way that we created this program last year around spring of 2022, we connected with a base of community groups and asked them to conduct a needs assessment and then create an employment training curriculum and to deliver on the employment project. So this was the only 3 criteria that we asked. Apart from this, everything that they did was based on their own needs and what they felt was preferred in their communities. So that was a really significant piece around this, and I wanted to highlight that because I think the big take home that I really want to talk about today is to create inclusive employment through building community. So these are the 10 communities that we worked with, and if you'll see, they kind of span across Canada. Obviously, we have such a diverse group of communities. It was really hard to capture them all through this tiny little project, and we managed to gather 10 communities through this. So I'll go through a little bit about each community. They're so dynamic and so diverse and so different in their needs and how they structure their employment program that it's going to be difficult for me to capture this all in the last few minutes. And I know I'm the last thing between you and your Easter weekend, so I'm going to try to pack this up really quickly. So I wanted to highlight firstly Beardies and One Arrow First Nation communities. They are the two First Nation communities within the 10 communities that we worked with in the Saskatchewan area. They're right outside Saskatoon. They're about, I want to say, 20 kilometers away from each other, but quite different in their needs. They're probably the most remote communities that we've worked with within the 10 communities. So a lot of their programming worked really intensely with elders that built the program, that worked closely with the youth, that participated in a lot of the workshopping and training, employment training involved, including gardening, medicine, development, sort of employment pieces ranging from carpentry to baking. There's heavy involvement with the generational structures within that community. And that was a very significant component because we know about the generational trauma within many Indigenous communities. There is a high rate of alcohol and drug abuse. So this was a very special pilot project for this community who prior to this didn't have any pre-employment inclusive employment structure. So this was a really key component for this community. I want to move on to talk about some of the other communities that we worked with. We worked with Community Family Supports Ontario, who work with the East Asian community, Grand River Training and Employment that are in Six Nation, also another Indigenous community. Nunavut Moving Services, they're in Iqaluit, Nunavut. They're an Inuit community that served youth on the autism spectrum who also may have had involvement with the criminal justice system. So their employment system also reflected the needs of that and dismantling a lot of the discrimination and oppression within those communities. So that was a really significant step forward as well. The other pieces that I wanted to highlight were, I think many of you are probably aware of SAC and some of the other communities I'm going to mention. So Youth Alliance for Intersectional Justice, they're based out here in Northern Ontario, but also have some satellite locations in Vancouver. And they work predominantly with the Black community. And Tropicana, and I think NDMS is also in Nunavut. So as you can see, we have quite a beautiful range of communities across from coast to coast who offered such differently structured employment programs. Some of them really ranged from moving services because in Nunavut, in Iqaluit, that was a really big demand in that community. So a lot of the training components were around modifying the training manuals there versus in Toronto, a lot of it was WMIS and safety and first aid and sort of being culturally competent in how they delivered that information with the youth there. So they really do range in how they provide what they chose to teach, what was significant to that community, what met the employment demands locally as well. So at the end of this project, so this started about, I want to say spring 2022 and ended end of September 2022 as well. So it was a pretty short amount of time that these communities were able to execute such a fantastic program. And at the end of that, we had 128 participants and 63 hires, which is almost a 50% hire rate, which is a pretty significant number for our community. And we were pretty impressed with that. But I want to really emphasize that this number doesn't even come close to the impact that this program had. We had a lot of families or youth that suffered from mental health challenges and were indoors for months and months and months, but this employment opportunity had encouraged them to come out for the first time. We had a few youths that didn't get hired at the end of this, but decided to enter into detox, which is a really significant impact from this. I think it showed to them that there's hope, that there's opportunity, that there's something else that could provide meaning in their life. And that was a really significant step forward from all of this. And so I want to kind of talk about what next and why this was significant. And I put these two pictures up because the first picture is the group of elders who worked together at the start of all this and in spring 2022. And this was One Arrow Cree First Nation just outside of Saskatoon. And this picture on the right is the graduating cohort that completed the 10-week employment training program in September. And I think it's significant to reflect on what all of this really means. Like, are we just doing this to feel good about ourselves? I don't think we are. But what are the next steps and what are the implications of this for our future, for our community? And I think if we look across Canada and think about the inclusive employment candidate pool, most of the time, currently, it's predominantly white male. So how do we change that? How do we diversify that? How do we create access to other communities? And why is that important? If we think about employment and the significance of employment, what does it mean for any individual? It can allow opportunity, it can allow autonomy, it can allow independence, build wealth, and pretty importantly, kind of provide a feeling of being of service or of being a member of the community. And right now, with the status of most candidates being white and male, it's sort of sending a message that these communities aren't a part of that, don't get access to that feeling and being a part of this great community that we've been talking about for so long. And it kind of got me thinking about why that is. And I think there's a few reasons, but to sort of keep it pretty simple, I think there's a pretty significant outreach gap. When I was doing a lot of this work early on, a lot of these communities had no idea about RWA, had no idea about inclusive employment, had no idea how to even get connected. So there's clearly a very significant outreach gap in which, whether it's employers, agencies, community service providers, can probably do a better job of connecting with their local communities, whether that's their local friendship centers, settlement centers, community centers, cultural centers, mosques, churches, temples. I think that's a really great place to start at a very community level. And we think about a lot of the work that we're all doing, whether in employment or outside of employment, a lot of it revolves around advocacy. And when I thought about advocacy, I realized that advocacy is so different from community to community, and it can sometimes kind of seem privileged. Like, to be an advocate, you kind of have to have access to time. You have to have access to resources. You have to have access to be able to take off time so you can go do the research. You also have to have access to safety networks, like whether it's financial safety, educational, mental safety, but also physical safety, just knowing that I can express myself and stand up for myself and not feel harmed or not feel unsafe about that. And I think we need to start thinking about this not so much in silos. And we talked about today the ecosystem of employment, and it's a very strong and significant pillar in the greater scheme of our lifespans, but it also plays a bigger part in the greater ecosystem of housing, of mental health, of education, of employment, of justice. So I want us to think about employment and being inclusive in employment in all its layers as a way of stepping forward and merging all these different aspects of society to create a more conducive and diverse and united society, so that it's a better world for everyone. Like, I think about inclusive employment and why we do it, and oftentimes I've heard people say, oh, it's to avoid the lawsuits. And sure, that might be the case, and that might work for some people, and that might step the needle forward for some folks, and that's fine. But I think it's also to create diverse thought. Like, if your candidate pool, your workforce is homogenous, you're really missing out on diverse solutions, innovations, creativity, creative tools that can create amazing new things that can make your lives better, make this world more fun and livable and pain-free. So I think it's important to both think about this on a micro and macro level, thinking about inclusive employment and what we can do next, but also thinking about how creating diverse and completely inclusive employment impacts the greater society altogether. So I just wanted to end with a strong message of sort of thinking about all of this in terms of building community and connecting with your local network. So whether you're an agency, an employer, a service provider, to go out and see where you could connect with your local cultural center or settlement center or friendship center. That way, we're not really thinking of this as a second thought or like a side project. It's really interwoven into a lot of the work that we're doing, from the marketing piece to the development of the program, to the implementation of the program, to the evaluation pieces. So it's not really like a side thing, it's just completely interwoven. I know that oftentimes the messaging that I often hear is that, you know what, this stuff, the BIPOC pieces are really outside of our mandate, they're outside of our scope. It really isn't. We know that there are Black, Asian, Indigenous folks on the spectrum that exist. And that's just one of the identities that I'm centering today. There's so many other. So it's really not outside of anyone's mandate. And it only makes all of our lives and our communities and our societies better. So I'll end with that. And I hope this is not the beginning or end of any conversation. I hope we do continue to do the work, do the labor, and to really align with truth and reconciliation, to continue to do the work on anti-Blackness, anti-Asian, and all forms of systemic oppression. So I think I got it all just in time. I'm 3 minutes late, but thank you all for listening, and happy Easter, Ramadan, Passover, long weekend, and thanks for tuning in.
Thank you so much, Cynthia, and thank you so much, Tanya, for wonderful presentations. I really liked your point about, you know, diverse, inclusive, accessible employment can really create a path that's a better world for everyone, right? So that's really important. So thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, again for attending the annual general meeting of the Autism Alliance of Canada. And I'm going to conclude the meeting and let people get on their way. In British Columbia, we still have half the day left. So, and many of you are at the end of your day. So thank you very much. And we look forward to seeing you all at the Canadian Autism Leadership Summit in a couple of weeks on April 16th. Thank you. I think we start on 17th.